Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Che, and I'm back at it for you with another video. I know it has been probably a week since I've filmed, so I'm coming at you with a good one today. Just let me just say, depression is a bitch. I suffer from depression, so I'll get into that another day, but there's just sometimes, some days, a week went by where I couldn't film. I didn't want to film. And that's my honest story of what happened this week. I just fell into a depression slump. But today I want to talk about probably the most gruesome murder story I have ever heard of in my life. Basically, to start off this story, I need to give you a history on 3 different people. We have Sabrina, this gorgeous little girl right here. And then there's a man by the name, his correct name is Welsam, but he called everybody and he told them to call him Sam, like the second part of his name. So he goes by Sam. And then we have poor innocent well, these two live in London. They've lived in London in a townhouse for probably about 4 years, I think they said. And she's a mother of 2 children. And then we have innocent poor Sophie. Sophie she was 20 at the time. And Sophie was in France, which I believe it was like a 3-hour flight, she said, from France to London or something like that. Basically, Sabrina, the first one, she was very, glamorous. She was obviously a beautiful girl. She grew up people in the town actually said that she was kind of like snooty in a way. Like, except for the one store owner. But you can treat a store owner differently than your regular neighbors. You know what I mean? The store owner said that she was very shy, very polite. She always, dressed very elegantly. But neighbors in the town had a different feeling about this couple. Neighbors in the town, they had gatherings at this town in London. I think it was called Small Hills. I wrote it down. Southfields, London, is where this took place. And they actually called it a village. It was a cute little area in London where there was like no crime, nothing happened there. And they actually had like community gatherings where, just like cookouts, barbecues, stuff like that. But they said that Sabrina and Sam never showed face for the entire 4 years that they lived there. And they thought that was odd because everybody in the community, they knew everyone else. So I guess one day Sabrina, she, as a mother of 2, she couldn't take it anymore. She wanted to hire a nanny. So she put up a local ad posting. One of Sophie's friends had lived in the area and she saw the posting. And as Sophie was described, which I'll also post a video clip, Sophie grew up very, very shy. Children flocked to her, and she flocked to children. People said it was easier for her to talk with children, and like she was so open with children, yet like the mom had to pull teeth just to talk to her, and she was just her first year of college, she loved kids so much that she actually went for childhood education. Like she wanted to teach, I think, children, and she wanted to make that her career. So she ended up getting a phone call from her friend that lived closer over in London and said, hey, I saw an ad, and they're looking for a local nanny. It's a younger couple over here in London, Sabrina and Sam, or Welsam, and they're looking for a full-time nanny. Like, this could be really good for you. So, she talks to her mom about it, because she's very shy, and she was very young also. And she asked her mom, if she could do it. She was going to do it. She thought that this would be her opportunity to expand, and maybe find other nannying jobs, grow her child, when you go to school, you know how they say sometimes, like, write any other extracurricular, can I talk today? Activities that you've done, like, you know, and she could say she's already been a nanny, you know, she's had that skill set before. But, and she said she also wanted to improve on her English. So she told her mom she thought it would be a great opportunity for her. And her mother seems like a sweetheart, and this is a picture of her mother right up here. And I will actually, I'll play the video clip of it, but about how children just flock to her. But basically, she decided to take up the opportunity. And at the age of 20 in 2017, she packed up her bags and she decided to take that 3-hour flight from France to Southfields, London, to become a nanny of 2 young children.
Sophie Lyonnais grew up in the village of Peronne in rural France. It's a couple of hours' drive south of Paris. She lived there with her mother and stepfather.
Sophie is a nice girl, always smiling, who loves life and had a joy of living. She was shy, yes. We spoke very little. It was always necessary to tear the words from her mouth so that she could speak with us. Sometimes she chatted well with us, but she was a very shy girl.
Sophie studied early years child education at college.
Because she loved children, and children always came to her, so she chose to do this job.
Sophie found it difficult to get a childcare job locally. So when a friend showed her an advert for a French-speaking nanny to work with a family in London, she decided to apply.
I would say that, you know, as you can tell, that what I just told you, children flocked to her. So she took this job opportunity. The first year apparently went by great. You know, she seems happy. There were pictures of her. There's a small video of her where she's laughing at the dinner table with the family. Everything seemed to be getting along great. Then Sabrina, the pretty mom, you know. It's obviously the pretty mom that has the psycho issues, you know. So apparently she had a bad relationship before she was with her partner, Wellsome, or Sam. And I'm just going to stick with Sam. Before she was with Sam, and she had become obsessed with this man. People actually said that they saw Sam leave for months at a time, and that was normal to that household. Like, they couldn't figure out who was related. They knew that Sophie was the nanny because she was always with the kids, but they actually thought that she had to have been a relative, because they said there's no way somebody would do all the work the amount of work that she's doing at the care level that she's doing it for a nanny amount of pay. So basically, Sabrina, prior to moving here, she used to date I guess he's a celebrity in London. He was the owner of the boys band called Boyzone. And I guess it would be like a Backstreet Boys here in the US. So I guess, you know, she thought that she was, you know, Miss Thang Thang. She had it going on. But she was the one that left, and then she started stalking him. And once he stopped answering her, she started making calls to the local police department and placing threat orders, like writing out complaints about him. And the police in the town of Southfields, get it in my head, Charlie, said that she actually filled out a total of 20 complaints about Sam and harassing him, saying that he harassed her, was stalking her, hurt her family, and police came, everything was false. everything came back false that she had said. And then police sent her a letter. Listen, you know, this has to stop. You know, you need to stop this crazy cuckoo thing you got going on with the ex. Like once he moved to LA, he was nowhere near her anymore. And that, I believe that's what amped it up. He moved over to LA, wasn't in London anymore. So it's like she lost that control factor over him. So I believe once she lost that control factor over him, she took her anger out. She had to take it out on somebody, and she started taking her anger out on poor old Sophie, who is just turned 21 at the time and is the nanny of her children of 2. So throughout this time, you know, people in the town said that Sophie, before I get there, I do want to mention, when I said the 20 reports, the police had to send her a letter as well, that if she was caught, what's the word called? If you get in trouble for defamation of character, that's what it is. If she was caught, you know, typing bad things about him anymore online, her celebrity ex-boyfriend, that she would be the one getting in trouble from the police, because everything that she has said so far for that whole year was a lie. All 20 complaints were a lie. So as she grew more frustrated, she started taking it out on Sophie. And I'm sure a lot of you like me are like, well, why didn't Sophie just pack up and leave, you know? And they had, you know, I watched this whole documentary. They had psychologists in there, you know, saying Sophie being so young and manipulative, we always say, well, we would do this in a situation, we would do that, when they said that she actually acted in a way that most humans would, you know, like, especially as a shy young girl. You know, she kind of took the abuse from Sabrina, because Sabrina was this, you know, probably 10 years older than her, beautiful, dressed to the nines, all types of stuff. So, one day Sophie had the kids out, and she actually met one of Sabrina's friends who decided to do her nails. And that friend of Sabrina's really, really wanted to learn English really well. And no, she wanted to learn French. Sabrina wanted to learn English better. So they agreed that they would like hang out and then like teach each other the other language. So Sabrina, this is one of the key factors in court, which I'm not going to give away the verdict yet. But this was one of the key factors that determined the court's and the jury's verdict, was she stopped by there one day, Sabrina's friend. Her name was given, but it was like Janalea or some really long name that I can't say. So she stopped by the house, just a random, you know, wanted to see if she could see Sophie or if they could go out. And Sam comes to the door. And he says, Sophie's not here right now. And then she hears Sophie upstairs say, hello? You know, and that's all she heard. And she said, I just heard her, Sam. Why are you lying to me? And he said, leave, and slammed the door in her face. So as soon as this happened, Sabrina decided to cut off all contact with her friend and Sophie. So they were not allowed to communicate with each other anymore. She was just like running shit. Like, no, you can't talk to her anymore. She's my nanny. She takes care of my kids, and you're not allowed to talk to her anymore. So Sophie started getting more attention around this point in the town because she was starting to get skinnier. And what the town didn't know was after this little run-in with Sabrina's friend, she decided to start not feeding Sophie, the nanny. She decided to start starving her. So basically she was starving her and keeping her at home. And the only time she was allowed out was when she was out with the children. If you ask me, I would have been out with those kids, dropped those kids off at the police station, and freaking booked it, okay? Like, But then you see all these psychologists talk about it, and they say certain people are different. So I can't speak for Sophie. She was only 21 and apparently very, very, very shy, which is what makes this situation even sadder. But it got to the point where Sabrina and Sam started filming abuse of Sophie. Sabrina had it in her head that since her ex-boyfriend, the celebrity of Boyzone, moved to LA, that the only reason Sophie took the job was because she must know him, and they're colluding together to ruin her life. This is the story that she came up with in her head. She thought that Sophie and her ex-celebrity boyfriend actually knew each other, came up with a plan, sent Sophie over as a nanny, even though she's from France, and tried to ruin her life. So, obviously Sabrina has severe mental issues going on. And with the 20 police complaints prior to this all being false, I would think that there's something going on too. You know, there's a little something worse going on up there. So she gets Sam in on it with her. You can see the two. There's audio. There was up to 8 hours of audio. I couldn't even watch it all, but I have certain clips that I'm gonna play for you. And she kept telling her, you will never go back to France. You will never see your mother again. Tell me the truth. You know, and you hear like a slap noise. Only she swears in court it wasn't a slap, that it was just a noise. It wasn't a slap, just a noise. So, anyway, these beatings started to escalate to the point where one of the agents that came to the case, one of the files was leaked, and I have part of the video. Then I'm gonna play it for you right now, if it actually plays, and hopefully it doesn't get monetized. So let's see.
Brutal and violent interrogations. Unbelievably, these sessions were recorded by Cuida and Maduni on a mobile phone.
I will not leave you alone until you tell me the truth. Is this clear? Do you understand?
These recorded interrogations were all centered around Cuida's obsession with her ex-boyfriend, Mark Walton.
Cuida obviously couldn't get to Mark Walton because by then he was living in Los Angeles, and she diverted all her anger and anxieties and obsession onto Sophie, and she got it into her head that Sophie Lyonnais was working with Mark Walton to spy on her and to wreck her life.
She concocted in her head a bizarre idea that there was a plot against her and Maduni, and so over time she began to question Sophie for many, many hours on end about what exactly she thought had been going on.
Extracts of these interrogation tapes were played to a shocked court.
You will not go back to France until you've told me the truth. I'm going to spoil your life as you have spoiled mine.
She started coming out with all these accusations about Sophie meeting Mark Walton secretly and plotting against her.
What you were listening to was a quiet and unassuming girl being harangued, threatened, and intimidated.
They said that she'd be locked up for 40 years. She was like a murderer. All of this was to make her confess.
Whether you speak or you don't speak at your trial, you will do so. You will be jailed.
She was being physically abused.
Think carefully about 40 years in prison. Close your eyes for 1 minute, okay? Imagine yourself every day in a cage like an animal.
I couldn't sit through all of it because it was really too much.
Right. So as you can tell, she was being beaten. She was being tortured. You couldn't see the whole thing. It looked like it was being filmed like from the side. I don't know if they had to do it that way or not, but basically the guy described it as waterboarding, which I always thought it was called Chinese water torture. But that's the one where you have the washcloth over your mouth and you pour the water, you know. I think Sabrina was just holding her by her neck, dunking her head under the water until she couldn't breathe and keep pulling her up, you know, and tell me the truth. I mean, this 8-hour recording made me sick. I couldn't listen to it all. There's snippets of it that I put in here that aren't as violent, and this case is online. It's a true story. I'm not, you know, talking about some made-up crime. It's a true crime that you can actually hear the entire 8 hours of interrogation of her telling her, tell me the truth. Tell me you know him. Tell me you're colluding. And she kept saying, you will be caged. You will be caged like an animal. And then at one point she said, I will kill you. So the beatings literally got so bad that the guy at the food market that knew everybody in town, this is where Sophie would take the kids every day for their local lunch. They went there just almost every day. And he noticed her getting very, very frail, and she would never get anything to eat, only the kids. So he would like give her a bag of chips and water, and he said he would see her like turn and like gobble it like really, really quick and chug the water and just throw it all out, you know, and then she would like hurry back with the little stroller and the kids. And he said it was almost like she was on like a time schedule, or like she was being starved to death. She was not supposed to eat, and she was obeying Sabrina at even when she wasn't with Sabrina, she was obeying Sabrina's orders. So that's the one thing that really bothered me. I'm going to insert the picture up here. This was actually the last picture that was taken of Sophie. You can tell, I mean, it looks like on her forehead she's got like a big bruise. She has like no weight to her. She just looks like she's to the point of death. Asphyxiation. She's I don't want to get emotional, because I got emotional watching this video, because you're 21, like that's when you should be living your life, and you know, not having a younger couple, you know, strangle your head, hold your head underwater, all because you have a made-up belief in your head that she knew your ex-boyfriend that was in a boy band. Like, people make me sick. But anyway, for some reason Sophie stayed, and she stuck it out as the nanny. So one morning, the couple decided to have a barbecue. So one of the neighbors was walking with her husband, and she had mentioned that she said to her husband, wow, that smoke is like billowing, like that's a lot of smoke. And then the husband was like, yeah, let me go check that out real quick. So he goes over and he sees a man, you know, throwing logs and sticks on top of it. And he said, there's a man there maintaining it, like there's nothing, you know, I can do, you know, like it's being controlled basically. And it was actually said and stated there was another grill on in the yard, only it was in the more center of the yard, where they were cooking chicken to cover the scent of the other fire. And do you want to know why? Because one of the nights that they were doing the torture with her, the water torture, this is what put them both with the verdict from the jury on the same level. It was heard from a third party that was in the house at the time. They heard both Sabrina and Sam saying, breathe, 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 Sophie, breathe. So, I guess one of the times that they had held her head underwater, it was for too long, or she was being starved to death. You know, how much strength do you have? How many times can you hold your breath? You know what I mean? It's a sad, disgusting story. These people are really evil. But as they were having the barbecue, you know, as I said, the husband said it seemed maintained. So him and his wife went walking, you know, they just kept walking down the street. But the only person, thank God for this one person. It was the neighbor that was his backyard faced their backyard. And the only reason he called 999, which I guess that's their 911 is 999. He called 999 because the smoke was getting to the point of like spreading. And then they also were cooking on another thing, chicken. And he had no idea why there was one fire closer to the side of the road. And then there was an actual grill with chicken on it in the middle of the lawn. It didn't make sense. So thank God, thank the Lord for this man, because if it wasn't for him, nobody would have called the police, or Sam could have gotten away with it at this point. So he calls 999. The fire department decides to come out, and they say, whoa, sir. They said, this fire is way too close to other people's homes. You have smoke billowing, you know, it's going everywhere. You know, we have to put this fire out. And then one of the firemen had noticed that they were also cooking on another grill. And he said, why'd you have a fire over here if you're cooking over there too, you know? And Sam at the time apparently had said he was just getting rid of trash. So this kind of like set an alarm off in the guy's head, you know? He's kind of thinking like, something isn't sounding right here, you know? So the fire department, the guy brings up his hose and he sprays the whole fire down. And he starts taking a shovel or a rake or whatever, just moving the stuff around. And they can see, like, it was like straps, like leather straps. What they had done is, when Sophie was dead, they had put her in a suitcase. And the one fireman was going through everything, and he started to find fingers, limbs, and he said he found a piece of a nose. I told you this was not for the weak-stomached, because this was one of the most disgusting murder stories I've ever heard. So as soon as he saw this, you know, the police were notified. The police came. They said the body was burned so bad. The body was actually placed inside of a suitcase. The suitcase was put in the middle of the fire, and then he was putting the sticks over top of it, and then that's when he poured the gasoline on it and lit it on fire. But they said that the body was burned so badly, it took them 7 days to identify who the person even was, which the town had kind of already figured it out by process of elimination. They say before the conclusion and the reports actually even came out. So this was actually taken, obviously, to court, because as of right now, you know, in their uproar of the town where nothing goes on like this, they had just heard of somebody being found in a fire. You know, they didn't know all the details until the court, you know, trials and all that stuff was going on. And then finally, Sam and Sabrina were both brought into the courts where all the details were laid out.
And Maduni. After a grueling murder trial where each defendant blamed the other for her death, the jury retired to consider the disturbing evidence.
We'd all been waiting for days for the jury to come back with their verdict. It was a full court. We were very conscious that Sophie's family was very nearby. We were all rather on tenterhooks.
After 30 hours of deliberations, the jury returned their verdict.
When the verdict came in, Medouni just hung his head.
Both Wissam Medouni and Sabrina Quider were found guilty of murder.
Sabrina just started crying, and Sophie's mother, Catherine Devallone, started crying as well.
Don't expect it. We feel really guilty that, we didn't notice what was going on. She was such a lovely girl, and it's just a horrible, horrible thing to have happened right in front of our eyes.
I feel guilty because we just wish that they could have done something. She wanted to go back to France and she only needed £20 or £25. We would have given that to her.
I feel bad. I should have gone to the next level. Either made a complaint, but that period was too short. When that happened, I think it's a week I saw her. After that, never saw her.
Nobody thinks that this kind of thing is going on their doorstep. And that is one of the things really that helps abusers and controlling people to do what they do, is because we all stand around on the outside thinking, well, it can't be that bad.
Sorry guys, I swear I'm all out of sorts. This story made me so emotional because I watched the full documentary. It's a little bit harder, when you see it, you know what I mean? And I didn't listen to all 8 hours of the interrogating her. I couldn't even take more than an hour and a half of it because of how sick it was. At one point, Sabrina actually even made a complaint to the police that her ex, the celebrity, was using black magic to control her. This lady had issues, and this is also raising awareness on mental health, because people with mental health, I think the police should be watching them a little bit more carefully, because maybe if they had, or if somebody would have just stepped up and been a little bit more bold, Sophie would still be here today. So that is the story of Sophie's life, and I just wanted to share it with you guys because I feel like she deserves to be known and her story deserves to be told. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back again this week with another makeup tutorial, and then I'll do another Say What Saturday next week. So thank you guys so much. Give it a thumbs up if you liked hearing this stuff like this. If you like my Say What Saturdays, I know they're a little crazy, but just give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you do like these Say What Saturdays where I talk about either like a true crime like this, or I do anything that I say what to, like anything that is mind-blowing, I will do it. I do it on a Saturday. I always do some type of story coverage, and then I also do a makeup tutorial during the week. So if that is your niche, if you would like to, then also subscribe. And if not, other than that, I will see all of you sometime later. Bye guys, and be safe. You never know what's going on even next door. So watch your backs, be safe, and I love you all. Bye guys.